Yeah.
Small group discussion with our primary
Okay.
at discussions.
There's
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably
Anything we need.
Water would be great.
My assistant actually is a big bribery.
Okie dokie. Oops. Hello. Okay, well, I'm loud. Let's face it. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi. Great. Would you want to come in and sit down and we'll rock and roll here? Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. I see you guys standing at the back. Come sit down, come sit down. I'd like to call the special convention back to order, and I'd like to call on our chaplain, Faith, for prayer. What a great name for a chaplain, right? Faith.
I want to say when people really like my name, I said, I've always liked my name. It's a very good name to grow into. And I hope I spend the rest of my life growing into my name.
That's great.
When I come into prayer myself, I always like to begin with silence to settle what's been going on before and to give God space and room to be present within me. And so I invite us into that silence as we begin prayer. Loving and compassionate God, Spirit of life and hope, thank you that we all belong to the one body, and that body is Christ's, of which Christ himself is the head. Keep reminding us that this is how we belong together and to each other as the one body, in which each of us honors the other, supports and attends to the other. As we return again to the business of the church, guide us in your infinite wisdom as we listen, learn, and discern regarding our responsibilities as citizens of this earth, as siblings in community, as advocates for justice, and as instruments of peace. May your Spirit blow through this space that we might feel its life-giving, life-sustaining power. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I would like to call on the Task Force on Carbon Neutrality to come forward for their next session. Oh, I did it again. Linda, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Linda needs to give the registration report. Okay.
Oh, well. Here's my report. Registration. 44 rostered delegates, 45 lay delegates, 6 NCC members, 8 online participants for a total of 103 voting delegates.
8. How does it get to be 103 if they're all even numbers? Oh, 44, 45. I heard 44. There we go. Now, can we please call on the task force on carbon neutrality? My apologies.
We have a mathematician in the house. Well, my colleagues here, there's Paul Gurr and Adele Buckley here today. And this is really Jeremy Langner's presentation, but we had technical challenges with the presentation, so they asked me to do it. And yesterday I did a presentation, and I went to my room and phoned my wife and said to her, this was my last presentation to a large audience ever. I'm 75 and it's over, you know. Yay! So God had a different plan for me today, and God has a sense of humor. So I will start by thanking the staff here who helped me get ready for this, and I really appreciate their support, so maybe we can give them a little round of applause. So session 3 of the Net Zero Task Force, we have 2 items planned for you, 2 activities. The first one will be me presenting to you the greenhouse gas inventory calculator, and that's about 14 PowerPoint slides. And then we have 3 questions for you, second activity, and in a roundtable fashion, you'll be able to have conversations about net zero at each table, okay? So we'll start then with the calculator. Can I have the first slide? Thank you. So this is the first page, you would call that the summary page, where all the results are given to you when you've inputted all the data that I will show you how to input in a moment. So this is a spreadsheet. It's Excel in this case, but it's compatible with Google Sheets, Numbers for Mac, or OpenOffice. And that tool has been submitted to the national office and will be uploaded to the website shortly. So what we have on this tab is just the general information. So this one is Abundant Life Lutheran Church. I think Jeremy used his own church to do the exercise, so he put the location, the year 2019, calculated by Jeremy Langner. And basically, what it shows you is the greenhouse gas emission measured in metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So whether you've been burning electricity, oil, natural gas, propane, it all gets converted into CO2 equivalent. Can I have the next slide? So what it shows you, if you look at the part in red there, is the inventory for Abundant Life is 32.52 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. And underneath, there's a couple of items. They say it's equivalent to 7 cars per year. And that's just a conversion that you did just out of interest for those who want to know how much is 32 tons of CO2 equivalent. It's the equivalent of owning 7 cars and running them in an average fashion in Canada. And it's the equivalent of planting 538 trees over 10 years from seedlings. So these are just additional information, but the key piece there is the 32.52. That's the result of that calculation. So the calculation, if I can get to the next slide, it has 3 tabs. The first tab is called Scope 1, the second tab is Scope 2, the third tab is Scope 3. So we'll talk about each one of them. Scope 1 are what you call the direct emissions, and I don't know if you can read it there under Scope 1. It says includes emissions from fuels consumed directly by your organization. So it's your building and the cars that you own, so to speak. And I believe it includes things like your barbecue for the propane and diesel for maintenance equipment or gas for the lawnmower, that kind of stuff. So it's things you burn locally or directly on your site, or if you have a vehicle, in your locality. So in this case, the church, it allows for 5 buildings, by the way, but at Abundant Life, there is only 1 building. So it's, if you look at the first line in the yellow part on the left, it says church, natural gas, metric cube, 14,000, I can't quite read it, I think over 14,000. And then there is a conversion factor, and you wind up with the last number that 14,000. I'm not sure I can see the unit. So then you have an emission factor. The emission factor is how you go into CO2 equivalent. So you multiply that by 1.9, I believe, and you wind up with a figure of 27.3 kilogram of CO2. And 27,000 kilogram, which means 27 metric tons, right? So for that tab, I think we only added 40 liters of gas for maintenance of the equipment. I assume it's their lawnmower. And so that takes care of the Scope 1 emissions. So next slide, please. Well, the next slide shows you that when you deal with that building at the church, you have the choice of fuel type. So it's not just good for Abundant Life, but if you use natural gas or oil or some other source of energy, you will choose that through that tab the proper equivalency or the proper conversion factor. So where you find that information that you input there under consumption is your utility bill. So you get your end of year fiscal year statement from either the hydro or whoever is a company that provides your heating at the church, and that's how you input that information. And the spreadsheet will automatically calculate the emissions for each building. That sort of concludes what I can say about Scope 1 emissions. So it's any fuel consumed by vehicles or equipment owned by the organization, and any fuel used for heating in the building. So for this congregation, like I said, it was 27 tons. Scope 2 is the next slide. In scope 2, if you read that second line at the very top, I can't quite read it, but it's the emissions related to your electricity consumption. So electricity can be fairly clean if it comes from solar and wind, and hydro is also pretty clean, but if it comes from coal-fired power plant, it's kind of a dirty fuel, right? So it is not happening in your building. The power plant is somewhere else, and that's why you're in scope 2. So this emission will be accounted for based on how the province where you live in is generating the electricity that you consume at home. And if you use baseboard heating, a heat pump, your appliances, fridge, stove, and the lights and everything that runs on electricity will appear on your electric bill and the utilities bill, and you input the amount of kilowatt hour. In the first yellow column there, they inputted 44,220 kilowatt hour, and because it's Manitoba, the emission is a pretty clean electricity in Manitoba. Your emission intensity factor is 0.003, so you wind up with 150 kilogram of CO2 equivalent for abundant life for the year 2019. So the intensity is quite different from province to province. Now I explained to you life is not fair. If you look at the next slide, you look at, so that's how you choose the province. So I forgot about that slide. Next one again. Yeah. If you're doing it for Nova Scotia, same amount of consumption, just as an example, instead of 150 kilogram, it's 26,532 kilogram of CO2 equivalent. So if your church is in Nova Scotia, that will be a very big component of your carbon footprint because the electricity is relatively dirty. The next slide shows you Nunavut, and it's even worse there. The intensity emission is 0.75, and it gives you a total of 33,163 kilograms. So it's 33 tons of CO2 equivalent per year for 1999 if the congregation in Nunavut had consumed 44,220. These are just hypothetical things to show you how different the situation is going to be from province to province. So the good news is if you're in Nunavut, you probably want to start in 1996 because what happened is the energy is getting cleaner and cleaner over time. In Alberta, for example, they're shifting from coal-fired plants to gas-fired plants. And the carbon footprint, the emissions factor has improved by 31%. So if you start in 2019, you're going to get a reference point and benefit. It's not cheating, but you're going to benefit from all the effort that are being done in your community and in your province. And also, this is my advice, but since that year, in 2019, at my church in Coquitlam, we've done a lot on, like I said yesterday, the fluorescent bulb upgrade. We do a lot more recycling. We eliminated the worship bulletin and went to electronic or a thinner bulletin with more overhead stuff. So we've done a lot of things. So you should give yourself credit. I mean, it doesn't start today. You can start in 2019, and you'll get a better grip on which way this curve is going. So I think it's a good idea to start in 2019 to get some of those trends going, and you'll get a better handle on things. So the next slide is Scope 3. Now in Scope 3, it's a grab bag of all other indirect emissions. So mostly vehicle mileage and travel. So not the car that maybe the church is owning, if it owns one, but if you are going to a conference and you take a taxi or you go you drive and you rent a vehicle, you fly, you take the bus, the train, whatever you did in terms of input for travel, it will go in that sheet. So it allows you to put a bunch of vehicles there. They included the pastor vehicle in case the pastor owns his own vehicle and he has some mileage, and you can then account this in your travel chart there, 3,100 kilometers for Abundant Life in 2019. But you can have several vehicles that were used for different events and then put the information. If you can go to the next slide, for travel, you can enter air travel, train, bus, and so on. So you can see that Jeremy inputted the clay events on the right-hand yellow box there, the right-hand side for is it 19 or 18? So I think it's 2019. And he puts an asterisk and he wrote that he did 50% of the trip, because this is an event occurring every other year. So this is a little trick for a management trick. If you have an event that occurs every 2 years that has a significant expense, you don't want your carbon footprint to go up and down all the time. Ooh. So you average it over 2 years. So you can see that he put 751 kilometers from Toronto to wherever the event was, and that's half the distance. The actual distance is 1,500 kilometers. So next year, you'll have to remember to input this again so that he amortizes the clay event for 10 people over 2 different years, right? So this is how this is working. The next slide shows you there's a place to put materials. So paper has a carbon footprint. And if it's recycled, it's a much smaller intensity factor than paper that you don't recycle. Now, I don't expect you to be running around and weighing each sheet of paper that goes in and out of the building. So one is an estimate, and you try to get it right, but the best way probably to get at that is if your statement of the end of the year financial statement, there is a line for paper for the copier and the printer. You can go there and see how many boxes of paper you purchased. And on the label, you'll find the weight, and you'll say, well, I know we use 15 boxes and they weigh 1 kilogram each, so I'm going to input 15 kilograms in my consumption. You just have to decide whether you recycle it or not. If most of it goes to the bulletin and you recycle your bulletin, it goes on the first line. If not, it goes on the next line. And you don't want to lose sleep over this. If somebody says it should be 6 and somebody says it's 5, then put 5.5 and move on. Well, we're trying to make your life simple. You're trying to get the right number, and you'll carry it the next year. And unless it's your anniversary and you produced a souvenir album of 50 pages and you printed 500 copies, that number is not going to change from year to year if your congregation is about the same size. So these are not big numbers in the big picture, but that's about the best you can do there. And the same thing for the waste there. They want a weight. Maybe 1 week you take a look at it and you talk about a couple of the staff about how the organics are being handled in your church, and I'm sure there's a recycling program as well, but you try to come up with the best possible number there. At the bottom, there's other emissions. It shows a snow clearing. So, what is the area of your parking lot, and how many months do you need snow clearance, and how many times per month do they come? And in 1 year, they might come 7 times, and 1 year, 8 times. So it's not going to change how you arrive at net zero in 2050. Whether you subtract a trip every year. So get an average, get a rough number, and plug it in there. And the last one there is called lawn mowing. Now, we showed lawn mowing earlier. If you do your own lawn and you buy your own fuel and you burn it, it goes in scope 1. But if you have a contractor who comes to do your lawn, it goes in scope 3. So it's one or the other, and it tells you, based on the surface of your lawn, here is the intensity number, and that gives you a carbon emission of so many kilograms. So if you look at the bottom of that page, you get 5,100, so it's 5 tons of kilogram of CO2 for your scope 3. So back to the next slide, not back, but forward the next slide, which is back to the, really the first slide I showed you. This is the summary. That's how you get to your 32.52. Scope 1 plus scope 2 plus scope 3 gives you a total of 32.5 tons of CO2 equivalent for Abundant Life in Winnipeg in 2019. So we figure you can fill that out in about, Jeremy says half an hour, but I think the first time it'll take you more than that. But in year 2 and 3 and 4, I think half an hour is a reasonably accurate estimate. And our hope is that your organization will start to take regular tabs of this data and update the inventory on an annual basis. And I'm sure you can't wait to get your hands on it, those who like to crunch numbers. And we would encourage the congregation to report these numbers in their annual report alongside the treasurer report, so they see their financial performance year to year, but also their carbon footprint performance from year to year, so that they can see the progress they're doing relative to their target. So that's the summary of the calculator. It should be online imminently. I'm not sure. Kyle, do you know where it will be put on the website? Is there a home for that resource?
I think Paul's coming to address that at the microphone.
If you could give me 10 seconds to pull it back out of my brain. It's under stewardship of creation, and you have to scroll down near to the bottom, and we'll make sure that information gets communicated out next week.
And I personally, when I looked at that today, I was asked a question yesterday about what about small congregation who can they afford to do this? And when I look at the Nunavut data and how much of a carbon footprint is incorporated in their electricity, for example, it made me realize that maybe I didn't answer the question as well as I should, but I think certainly some of those smaller congregations that have these big footprint due to the fact that their electricity comes from dirty sources might need help. They might be down the road in a few years a way of looking at how maybe a synod approached these challenges, but certainly it's good to start now and to do your first baseline, and I suggest you do 2019, and we can all go on together from there. Are there any questions? Okay.
I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And is that the end of the presentation?
Maybe Paul was in charge of that, but we have 3 questions for you, so I need the final slide. And I don't know how much time we have left for you to have this conversation. So you have 3 questions. Where have you seen meaningful action on climate change in your community? The second one is, what do you think congregation can do to reduce their carbon emissions? And the third one, what kinds of projects or initiatives do you think that your congregation might be willing to consider? You can look at all 3 or one of the 3, depending on your interest. And
We have 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If they have an equation, the product would just be
Okay, thank you.
And then nice and easy because you just open up the can.
Yum. Thank you. Did Carl not just let her leave? I just missed her. So it's close to the... She's still here. All right, good. Just have some direction. I think.
have the elite certified. That is actually quite
And you want me to just go give them some now?
Yeah, well, Karen isn't there right now, so... Yeah, wait till she's back. So she knows what it's from. Yeah.
No, I know, yeah. And it's funny, like, Seminary was built in 63, but there was this big ancient water line to make it a historic building because we was bigger. And we bought tooth and nail against that because it's impossible to change. The stream was there, they heard it.
Anything you need?
No, I'm good. Oh, can you just hand me my water? Since I'm up on a stool. We'll see.
We shall see.
Mhm.
Good professorial presence. He's very deep in his data. And most people thought, okay. So what? It's an interesting concept. I have no idea how much of that information we already collect. How many boxes of paper, I suppose, we can figure out. And I think our worship committee would have something to say about projecting the hymns on the screen.
It's all about choices, right?
It's all about you, and it's possible. I mean, we did the light bulb things, we did the insulation things, and then there's a certain level where you say, well, there we are.
Okay. So I'm trying to think about if they're as fast moving as they have been,
Yes.
and that if the racism thing just goes through, and the Moravians go through, I think those
I
things are
don't anticipate much here.
no.
I don't know if I told you yesterday where Jen grew up in Bruderheim. There were two churches, Lutheran and Moravian.
There you go.
And she liked the Moravian better because when they had wedding receptions at the Moravian church, you could dance.
Nice.
She couldn't do at her church.
Yeah.
Then she
So,
went to junior high and discovered they were Catholics.
who knew?
Who knew?
So, if I get ahead, I'm going to do the carbon neutrality one.
Sure. No, just tell the group, are you ahead of the agenda? Are you ready to move ahead? And people will nod and wave, and away we go.
Yeah.
And if it has to break for a cup, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're in the area. The rest of the I cutting their and killing. So is Jeremy probably more and if they reduce that, it also they used to, they had a lot, so they have
I'm going to the washroom. I've got enough time. Yes.
Because we looked at it like solar panels should be great. Yeah, like we could have actually generated power from multiple solar. Should be. So that's power is discouraging. Give you more
Ask you to bring your conversations to a close, and we'll move on. And Louis, do you want to come back up?
It'll be just a brief comment. Somebody asked me, what do you do with a heat pump? It's tied in your utility bill, so it goes with scope 2. So if you heat with a heat pump, you don't have a scope 1, I guess, and you put it in there. Somebody asked if, can we use this at home? By all means, so you could share it with your congregation. And the other issue is, another thing that's tied in your utility bill is your partners. If you rent your church on Saturday for another church, they become part of your footprint. So you have to have conversation with them and let them know that you're doing this exercise, and they become a partner with you, because you can't tease out their use of the photocopier from yours and their use of the lights and everything else. So every church will be different, and that will be some of the challenges that you'll have to address in your congregation. Thank you.
We're about to move into a time of decision-making, but before we do that, I'd like to make an announcement. We heard downstairs, looking forward to the future. We heard downstairs that the Anglicans raised over $4,000 towards the Sudan East Africa appeal, and PWRDF was putting in another $25,000. I checked with Canadian Lutheran World Relief, and already we have raised over $100,000 in our church. And the offerings from last Sunday still need to be filtered in, so it will be higher than that. It's not a competition. Yes, but if it was, we're winning. That's right. So, I know on behalf of Karen, and the rest of the CLWR team, the board, the staff, that I want to thank you all for your generosity, our church for our generosity. We really are generous, and I appreciate that so very much. So thank you. Give yourselves a hand. So the motion that's coming before us now is that the 2023 Special Convention adopts the report and recommendations of the Task Force on Addressing Racism, White Supremacy, and Issues of Racial Injustice. That report you can find in Appendix 17 in your Bulletin of Reports. It's moved and seconded by National Church Council, and it's before you now for consideration. So you may speak at the microphones. I'm picking up a certain pattern here. I'm assuming you want to proceed to the vote? Oh, good. Somebody's coming to the microphone.
Somebody has to say something.
Thank you, Barb.
Barb Stoley, lay delegate from Alberta. And I just want to raise for the convention the amount of training that we are asking our leadership to take on. Our National Church Council does not meet that often, nor for that long. So requiring this training even over 3 years is going to require a lot of time. Same thing happens when you look at the synods and when training gets down into the congregational levels. Just be aware. So this is neither for or against. Just be aware.
Thank you, Barb. And what will happen is we will, if this passes, we'll report to you in the next convention on how we've done so far. So that's the way it goes. Any others wishing to speak? Head nodding if you're prepared to vote. Okay. Let's open up the voting app. Kyle's ready with it already. I gotta find it again.
Point of order.
Yes?
The wrong motion is up.
Thank you. Wrong motion. No, it isn't. This is the. Oh, I see. On the app. This is. It's this motion that we're voting on. No, we're voting on racism. Yes. We're voting on the report and recommendations of the task force. Yeah.
Excuse me, could we have some clarity
Sorry.
on that? You said we would be voting, when you said we're going to take a vote, it was, you said carbon neutrality? Are we
Did I?
Yes, are we actually voting on this because nobody got up to talk to?
I am pretty sure I said the task force, that I read the motion right in front of me, and it says that the 2023 Special
That's
Convention
not what our
adopts.
table heard.
Okay, I apologize. If I made a mistake, I apologize, but we definitely are voting on the task force on addressing racism, white supremacy, and issues of racial injustice. Oh, I need to finish voting here. Okay. How are we doing? Anyone having issues? I don't see any, so let's call for the results. All right, clap. You just want the evening off, I think. This is my secret worry. We'll see. Okay, we're going on to another motion. I will read very carefully. We're dealing with Appendix 15. If you guys could listen, please. The motion is that the 2023 Special Convention adopts the agreement, one flock, one shepherd, Lutherans, Anglicans, and Moravians called to walk together in full communion, declaring that a relationship of full communion exists among the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada, the Anglican Church of Canada, and the Moravian Church in North America. Got it? You got it. Speaking to the motion. Yes.
Although I realize the mic says opposed, I wish to speak in favor, but it's the closer microphone.
I will allow it.
Mark Jerry, member of National Church Council, Saskatchewan Synod, and Luther College. As somebody said this morning after we enjoyed our love feast, they've told us they love us. It's now our chance to say we love them back.
Thank you. Any others wishing to speak?
Just a clarification, is it, in our document, it's the Moravian Church in Canada. Is it the Moravian Church in America?
Paul, can you please clarify that? I was a little surprised reading that myself.
The Moravian Church, as it's expressed in Canada, belongs to a church that includes both Canada and the United States. And so we wrote about Moravians in Canada, as that was what we were trying to do. And officially, with their body, you're asking me here, I'm a little tired, but it's the northern province of the Moravian Church in North America, of which the Canadian Church, the Moravian churches in Canada are part of that.
So what is the actual motion supposed to read? What did NCC pass? Oh, I can look that up. Just talk amongst yourselves. Oh, yeah, right, good point. F1. The motion that NCC adopted did read in North America. The understanding is that we are in partnership with the Canadian churches within that church.
Jordan Smith, rostered delegate, Eastern Synod. I'd asked this question through the forum last night, and the question was about, I'd heard in the speech last night from our Moravian partner that the Moravian churches in Newfoundland and Labrador still had to vote on this separately. And so I don't know if Paul's able to offer clarification on that.
They're in two
or I could
different-
offer what I heard from Scott.
They're in two
Yeah.
different provinces.
Yeah.
So our aim is to be in full communion with the Moravians in Canada.
Yeah.
They happen to be in two different provinces, so there are two different synods or assemblies or conventions or whatevers that they will have to make the vote. But the intention is we're in full communion with those in Canada.
This is a point of order. At my table, we're having trouble logging in. Is the electric vote up yet?
No, it isn't,
Oh, not
because
yet.
we're still discussing. I haven't called for the vote yet. You don't get to vote in advance. You don't get to vote more than once either. Any further speaking to the motion? Then Kyle, if you would prepare the voting. It's ready to go. Oh, do you always have to log in again? Okay, how are we doing on voting? Can you guys just settle down for a sec? Anyone not voted yet? Okay. We'll wait. Hey, Scott, did you guys do this yet? Oh, okay. No pressure. I'm glad I'm not last this time. Are we done? Okay, let's call for the results then. Voting is closed. Fabulous. Scott, please report that back to our Anglican colleagues. And can you also let them know that Canadian Lutheran World Relief raised over $100,000 so far for the Sudan appeal? Thank you. Well done, gentlemen. Thank you. Okay. We are not breaking this early. So, are you ready to go on to the vote on the carbon neutrality? This will be carbon neutrality. Let's do it. So, the motion before you now is that the 2023 Special Convention adopts, that NCC shouldn't be there, adopts the updated report and recommendations of the Task Force on Carbon Neutrality. And that, my friends, is found in Appendix 19. So it's moved and seconded. It is before you. Microphone in favor.
Shay Belanger from the ABT Synod, she, her pronouns. So I mentioned this to my teenage daughters, and they were over the moon that we were looking at this and being proactive in this and finally doing something. So this is very important to the younger generation. This is something they are passionate about, and we need to be passionate about it too.
Thank you. Same microphone?
Lauren Corbett, lay delegate from the BC Synod. I wanted to speak in favor of the motion, just as a youth perspective, from someone who is 18 years old, living in a climate and a society where the world is kind of not great and not headed in a great place. And it has caused issues within the youth. Personally, me, I have struggled with the idea that I might not make it to like 70, and do I want kids? Do I want to bring kids into this environment? So that is something that I know I have discussed with other friends of mine who have also struggled with, what do we do about this? Is there going to be a world for us afterwards? Because we still have time, but is there time for us? So that's just something to urge of the young people in the current society really depend on the actions taken now before it's too late and then we no longer have a future in this world. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you know what? We've been hanging around the Anglicans, so we started clapping all the time. Our rules are that there's no clapping. I know. I've been hanging around with the Anglicans too much. My apologies. Same microphone.
Norman Thompson, lay delegate, BC Synod. As somebody who has made it past that 70 mark that the young people keep talking about, I'm excited that we're passing this motion. It's something that the old folks in the room, I think, are excited about passing this green motion. It's somebody who's planted thousands of trees to do my carbon offset for my future. I've made it this long, and those trees are now 50 years old, so I'm happy about that. So even us old folks are excited about it, the young people are excited about it, and I'm in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Any further speaking? Okay. Kyle, will you prepare the voting screen? we ready, Carl? Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone not voted yet? Okay, there's a couple, 3. We'll give you a minute. We got time. Okay, how are we doing with the vote? Who hasn't voted yet now? It looks like everybody. Thank you. Voting's closed. When you're ready. Tech desk. Wake up. Thank you. It is passed. Okay, what I'm going to suggest now, because the break stuff won't be out yet, is David, would you be prepared to at least do part of a reference and council report at this time?
Not me, here. I'm ready.
You ready? Okay.
We can,
Yeah, I can.
you know, there's one change, right?
Paul, are you ready? Even one motion?
Yeah. We are so good.
Oh, it's almost like having a break when Emily walks up. There you go.
Yeah. Break time.
We're back. Okay, attention to the stage, please.
Okay. We have a good number of motions. Thank you for a response from the 2 days ago challenge. It's not meant to be a challenge, so thank you. We've got a bunch of motions here now. So the first one, can we put it on screen to make sure we have the same thing here and there? Okay, we'll wait. You can sing, Emily.
Sing. I am a C. I am a CH. Let's hear it.
I am a CHRISTIAN.
And I am CHRIST in my HEALT. And I will LIVEETERNALY. Woo! Does everyone know this song?
No.
Let's stand up.
Let's do it again.
Come on.
Okay, everybody stand up.
Stand up. Come on.
We're going to do a movement break. Let me
All
see
right.
it.
We have you here.
Here we go.
Stand up only if you can stand up. Feel free to
In
sit.
spirit
sit.
or
Thank you.
body, that's, yeah. However you're able to
Yes.
work with this song, we're willing. Okay, so the lyrics, yes. Yeah, I'm ready. I was a camp counselor with outdoor ministry. This is my time to shine. Okay. So the lyrics go just like this. So the words are, I am a Christian. So it goes, I am a C, I am a CH, and then we're going to spell out Christian. No pressure if you get this wrong. That's okay, it's really hard. So it's going to go, I am a C, I am a CH, I am a CHRISTIAN. Woohoo. And then you're going to say, I have Christ in my heart, and I will live eternally. But you're going to spell all those things. Oh. I know. Ready? Oh, yeah. Okay. So then it's going to go like this. So let's do it really slow together. We're going to sing it twice. Okay. Just love God. Okay. Ready? I am a C. Now it's CH. I am a CH. Now all of Christian. I am a CHRISTIAN. And now I'm CHRIST in my HEART, and I will LIVEETERNALLY. Okay, awesome! Good job. Okay, ready? Now all together, we're gonna go a little faster. You feeling ready? Okay, ready? Let's do a step clap. We're gonna get into it. Ready? Oh, there it is. Oh, you guys are good. Oh, stop it. I am a C. I am a CH. There it is. I am a CHRISTIAN. And I am CHRIST in my HEART. And I will LIVEETERNALLY. Woo! How's the AV doing? So good. Great job, everybody.
Okay, I believe we have the motion ready to be displayed. Good
this is the
idea.
wrong one.
Oh, it's the wrong one we want?
That is the one that is wrong.
No, this one's.
No, hold on a
It's wrong.
second. It's motion 3. You already did 1 and 2, David.
Okay, this is the one that is wrong.
Yeah?
We're
No?
going to recommend adoption.
Okay,
The one with-
so put that back on, and we'll scroll down to the substitution. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
why don't-
because this is not a substitution, this is actually, we talk with the mover, and this is the actual motion before us, okay?
Okay.
This is the actual motion before us. So we ask the NCC to make available easily accessible and empowering language resources with common anti-racist terminology and the appropriate uses. The referencing council recommend adoption, so move and second.
Okay, thank you. It's moved and seconded before you. Any speaking to the motion?
Chung Yan Lam, roster, Eastern Synod. I would like to see if we could have an amendment that we consult racialized persons, Indigenous, Black people, in terms of usage of what's appropriate.
All right, can we put just stay there, Chung Yen. Put the motion back up, please. And what are you actually wanting to amend?
That there's consultation, that is not
But
only.
where does it fit in?
So we asked the NCC in consultation with maybe our diversity, equity, inclusion staff, some kind of consultation process so it isn't a particular group that may or may not have access and expertise in knowing what is appropriate. So that's my intention. I don't know how, I leave it up to if you need to change his wording. I don't have a proposal for wording.
Okay, I understand, but we do need specific wording. So maybe take a moment, find somebody and see what you can think of. We did just.
Sherry, do you have something?
We did just pass the racism, addressing racism, white supremacy, and issues of racial injustice task report, and it recommends an ongoing task force, so why don't refer it to them?
Yeah, sure. Bishop, may I respond?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, I think we take into consideration the task force recommendation. So everything in the task force recommendation is included. So this is just whatever the task force has done, they want to extract a package of language from what the task force would be doing so that everyone can have a simple one-pager, two-pager booklets to work on rather than look into the whole report.
So thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. Thank you. So we are good to move on, right? Okay. Good.
Further speaking to the motion?
Barb Stoley, lay delegate for Alberta. Just a question for clarification. Are there specific resources or all resources? Are these liturgies that come out of the national office. What are we talking about more specifically?
Our preassumption is common. We'll be able to pull out of our pockets because we know that there's a lot of resources already available. So they will pull out from whatever is available to make it into a docket. Sure, go ahead.
Just to add one more thing, we were discussing when we were talking about this motion that there is an inclusive language guide that the ELCIC made available, and that covers lots of LGBTQ terminology, like there's a whole bunch of things. So if you pull that up, it's like the first Google, and there's not an equivalent of that document for anti-racist work. So sometimes we struggle with definitions, we don't know what words mean. So I think the goal of this motion is to create something equivalent to that to help us all engage confidently in anti-racist work.
Further speaking? Kyle, you ready with the voting screen? Okay. You know what to do? You're seeing how slow I am at technology. And how are we doing on voting? Anyone not yet voted? Okay. How are we doing now? Everybody okay? Great. So when you're ready, the results, please. And that has passed. David, do you want to do one more?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Okay,
we do.
I think we'll do one more and then
we
we'll
have confidence with the convention floor. Next one. And the revised wording screen.
Okay, can I ask that you go back and read the motion so everyone hears it as well as sees it?
Yeah, I think the motion has been revised with the mover, so this is not the motion before us.
This is not the motion before you? Okay, what is the
Yes.
motion before us?
Okay, the wordings, you want me to read the wordings?
Do we have other language, Kyle?
No, the next one.
That's the right wording?
Okay, maybe just read it if you bear with me, see how the convention felt about the changes. Put on the first screen there. Just the first three wordings change is changed to, we ask the NCC to request the Program Committee for Worship PCW to commission the creation of a communion liturgy which would be available for use without a licensing fee. This may be accomplished through publishing the work under Creative Commons license. Next page.
So the reality is that you're referring to NCC. The rules are that you can't refer to a program committee. You refer to NCC, who refers to a program committee. So this is just following the chain, okay?
Yes.
Because program committees don't report back directly.
So with the new motion, actually, because the wording is now, we ask the NCC, so the Reference and Council recommend adoption and so move and second. So it's not the wordings here. So it's actually the same thing, basically the same thing. But just the mover already changed the wordings. We asked the NCC. So is this clear enough?
Everyone clear on the motion? Microphone then, Lynn, please.
I'm not opposed, I just have a question. I'm just not clear on, I would like some explanation of what this liturgy is for, or like, it just said a liturgy. So I'm not clear on why a new liturgy is to be written.
Microphone in favor.
Hi, Jordan Smith, roster delegate, Eastern Synod. I am the original mover of this motion, or the submitter of this motion to reference in council. So maybe I can speak to it a bit if I may. This came about from something I noticed during, as a worship leader, as a congregation leader, before I was ordained, during the early days of the pandemic, that we learned that while we were okay in churches as long as we had books in our pews, licensing fees were required for any to appropriately and legally follow our licensing agreements with 1517 Media or Augsburg Fortress, the copyright holders of all of our liturgies in ELW, Now All Creation Sings as well, and any other resources. And so I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, and we brought it forward with a few other co-movers just to ask the National Church to look at the option and working with our partners of if it's time to have a liturgy that is available to our congregations, to our communities, to people, without the use of licensing fees. Why we mentioned Creative Commons in there, there is information available online what that means, but realizing there might still be copyright on these documents, as in the way the Anglican Church of Canada does for their resources, but that we would, again, make them free for use without licensing fees required. I was looking at our Constitution, and it says that we gather as congregations for worship, witness, education, and service. And all of these things, if you look at our website and the work that we do as convention and our task forces, all of these different areas of gathering have opportunity to gather and resources that are provided free of use, but our worship is not. Our worship liturgies, our theology that comes through that liturgy is not available free of use. If you search our site, you search the ELCA site, you cannot find a way to worship if you're not going into a physical building. And so I think this would be an opportunity for the NCC to refer to PCW to look at how that might work and what might be available for us as full communion and as churches beyond border partners.
Thank you. And I'm just going to put a slight, I said this at the last convention, 4 years ago I said this too. I have to be somewhat responsible for both the financial resources of our church and the staffing resources of our church and the volunteer resources of our church. And so this is something that will take exploration. And along with a whole bunch of other work that's being assigned to the church, there's always got to be a slight understanding as we are able. We are very willing, but as we are able. Okay? So just putting that out there. Any other speaking? Okay, let's prepare the voting screen.
May I add a note, Bishop?
Yes, you can do whatever,
thank you.
David's a good boy, I trust him.
So basically, I would like everyone to know that the motion before you is we ask NCC, okay, not exact. I think the difference is we would like the convention to decide that I think the mover want to direct the National Church Council to do this. The motion as is referred to is just a thing given to the NCC for discussion. So that's the difference. So that's why the motion before you is the wordings, we ask NCC. Okay, not a referral to NCC. That's the difference. Okay, so when you vote, it's not the wordings on the screen you vote on, it's we ask NCC. Okay, that's the motion before you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, the voting screen is ready. You know what to do. Wait for me, see you at the other side. Okay, how are we doing on voting? There's one hand up still. Yes? I know that, and I'm a slow typist. I know. I want to use the voice app, but I know it'll just get it wrong, and then you'd hear my password. So you're stuck with me, one thumb going. Okay. I think we're done. Voting's closed. And that has passed. Thank you very much. And thank you, Referencing Council. We'll hear from you later this afternoon again. But we have some announcements before we go to break. And I've lost one of them already. That's okay. The announcement I lost is that Saskatchewan Synod is coming up here to take a picture at the beginning of the break. Right, Sid? Right. Okay. There is another announcement about buses and transport that I want to give to you. First of all, checkout time tomorrow is 11 o'clock. They do have a room to store luggage, but you need to be out of your rooms at 11. Oh, thank you. For those of you needing to travel to the airport after worship tomorrow morning, shuttles will start to depart from International House at the accommodations check-in at 11:30. Please be ready to depart at this time if your flight is earlier in the afternoon. If your flight is later in the day, there might be a need to wait for the second trip, which will be departing from International House at 1 o'clock. If the shuttle won't work for you, a taxi or Uber is an option. Clear? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
The desk downstairs seems to have totally different information, unless that's only for Anglicans.
That's only for Anglicans.
Thank you.
Don't sign up on Anglican buses.
They never said that.
Yes. Yes. Sorry, but yeah, that's the deal. You return, hold on. Hey, you're not out yet. And you're going to get a detention. Remember, I was a junior high school teacher. You return your keys to the registration desk, okay? At International House, that's right. And you, Kyle, what about lanyards? I'm sorry. Yeah, so at the end of the evening, we'll have you drop them off at that desk up there, the lanyards. We reuse. And it would be helpful when you do that you take the card out and tuck the cord inside. Just stops us from getting a big tangled mess. Mm-hmm. Microphone in favor.
Yeah, I'm in favor of everyone who is involved in worship tomorrow to come to a very quick walkthrough at 3 o'clock right away after we adjourn, just outside the Assembly Hall. So everyone who has been, you should have received an email note already, but here's a quick reminder of that.
Thank you. Judy.
Judy from Eastern Synod Lay. Are we getting a lunch tomorrow?
Kyle, do you want to give us details? I'm sure he'll send you an email in the morning, but the answer is yes.
Okay.
But here we come. More information. Hey, Kyle, did you hear you got a big shout out at Assembly?
I heard.
Earlier
I'm very,
today?
very gracious. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And you're the ones doing all the work, so thank you. Kyle Giesbrecht, Treaty 1. Yeah, so the meals tomorrow, I've arranged for excess meals for tomorrow afternoon. So if you're still here at noon, please come to the same meal place where you went for lunch and for dinner this evening. And we should have ample food because I ordered enough food for people who are departing a little bit later in the day tomorrow. So if you're still here, please come join us for lunch.
Sorry, quick clarification. By everyone who is involved in worship, I mean those who are assisting at communion. Choir, you have a separate rehearsal of your own. Thank you.
You are dismissed for break. See you back at 3:45. You get a nice break. I have to go to a rehearsal.
We did together. Yes.
No, there's no charge for photobombing.
Pardon me.
Something starchy.
Call you back to your seats and to silence and to order. I'll have fries. No, not that kind of order. I neglected one announcement before the break, and that was that our coffee break or refreshment break sponsor was Aon, so thank you very much to them for providing us with refreshments. Why not? Yes. We're now going to call on the task force addressing homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia to lead us in the next session.
Thank you again for your time and your listening and your journeying with us throughout these sessions. This is an invitation to grow into God's expansive diversity. What we have for you today is a walkthrough of our report and what the educational resources are about that we're asking for, and uplifting some of those points for you so that you can see in reality what that might look like within your context. And so within our report, we are kind of noting and uplifting that inclusion and equity are lifelong pursuits of God's people. Lifelong pursuits. And so there's no end to the journey of inclusion and equity and diversity in our church. There's no finish line where we wave the flag and say we're done. Thanks be to God that we continue to learn and grow together. And so we are thankful for your time as we grow in this expansive love. Steve.
So one of the things we wanted to address is, what does 2S stand for? Now, this is an ever-expanding acronym of diversity for non-heterosexual orientations, which includes two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, and plus, which includes all other queer identities that are not named but known within the community. This is also one of those areas where Google can be your friend.
Next slide, please. There we go. What are pronouns and why do they matter? So pronouns, when used correctly, can affirm people's gender identity and help create safe spaces for people to feel and see and to feel valued and safe. You may see pronouns that are masculine, like he, him, or feminine, like she, her, or there are neutral pronouns, like I use, like they, them. There's also a big long list of neutral pronouns that you may encounter in your life. Another example would be sie, zer. So just be open when people share their pronouns with you and don't think, well, that sounds silly, because it might affect them.
Pronouns, when used correctly, affirm gender identities and help create safe spaces for people to feel seen and valued. So we have a few suggestions as you're approaching this use of pronouns within your daily lives. So we say, share your gender and your pronouns with others and ask a person their pronoun and gender. It sounds like it's a lot to do, but it's actually not. So we're going to do a role play for you. Hi, my name's Lindsay. I use they, them pronouns.
It's nice to meet you. My name's Hayden. I also use they, them pronouns.
Was that easy? Look at that. So the point is, by simply offering up your own pronouns and your own chosen name, whatever that is, you're sharing with someone else, I care about you enough to know me fully. If someone's sharing pronouns with you and correcting you on their pronouns, it's because they're saying, I care enough about you and this relationship to want to continue in a faithful and respectful way. If someone's not correcting you on their pronouns, that's maybe something to also pay attention to say, maybe I'm not showing them the respect they need. I'm not showing them that I care about them and what they've told me. So all of us have pronouns, and maybe you've never thought about your pronouns. Pronouns she, her, he, him are what's most consistent in our society that we've known for a long time. And many of us would probably have a strong reaction if someone used the wrong pronouns for us. And so this is just one simple way to be an ally in your email signatures and other areas of your life, to simply put forward pronouns. Another thing is to take time to practice pronouns that may be new to you or new relationships. For myself, I transitioned to they, them pronouns about a decade ago. And that was a learning time for family and friends that had known me by the same name but by different pronouns. And so people that loved and cared about me would spend time practicing my they, them pronouns in sentences. And those who couldn't quite get on board with they, them started to just say Lindsay all the time. So I said, Lindsay me to death until you get the pronouns right. And so by practicing those things, there's even online forums that you can Google. Imagine that, Google. Pronoun practice. And it will come up with different phrases that then you can practice inserting the person's name and pronouns to get used to ways to honor them. This is a hard one for us in our binary world, but we know that a person's gender or their pronouns is not something that we can just assume. People may have other ways they wish to be known, even nicknames that feel better than their names that maybe we knew at a different point of their life. So it's always a good thing to check in with people. Another part for our church communities especially is to avoid binary or gendered language when we can. So it's always safe to use more inclusive language in our services, like friends, children of God, folks, y'all, and beloved. The last thing is, if you happen to call someone by the wrong pronoun, the wrong name, simply just say sorry and then continue. There's no need for a long apology groveling on the floor. We do accept Starbucks gift cards. But it is just a useful marker to say sorry and then continue on and then attempt to use that correct pronoun or name. And to help others. So to be an ally, if you know someone's pronouns aren't being respected, it's an okay thing to ask that person in a moment, hey, I noticed that someone was misgendering you. Someone was using the wrong pronouns, the wrong name. Can I be an ally and just uplift for that person that you have this new identity? Can I come alongside you as you share that with someone else? Or is this not a safe place? And should I just not say a thing? It's always important to center the individual in that moment in your allyship.
What is RIC? So it's actually an acronym which means Reconciling in Christ. Reconciling in Christ is a program that comes out of Reconciling Works. You may not know this, but Reconciling Works is an ELCA and ELCIC organization that's been working on these justice issues since 1974. Lutherans also was known as Lutherans for Full Participation, has advocated for the full inclusion and equity of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and sexual aromantic Lutherans in all aspects of life in their church, their congregations, and their community. It's a public way for faith communities to see, name, and celebrate people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and expressions in a Lutheran church. Also, because of the updated commitments to be a part of that program, it also includes things such as racial justice, economic justice, and climate justice. So it's not just LGBTQ justice. It's a program of Lutheran congregations. Some of your congregations are RIC. It's a program of synods, of colleges, seminaries, and other organizations can also be RIC, and many of ours are. Congregations that become RIC are open to calling 2S LGBTQIA+, see, you can make mistakes, and Black, Brown, Indigenous persons of color, BIPOC folks, into rostered leadership. So next we're going to show a video from St. David's Anglican Lutheran Congregation in Aurelia, and Pastor Lori Polatsky, who's going to tell a story about Erla, which actually illustrated for us how important it is to be affirming congregations. Lori speaks about a member of her congregation using a dead name and past pronouns, but we wanted to still include it to uplift that inclusion and equity are lifelong pursuits of God's people. This is not work that must be done with perfection, as they told us just with pronoun use. It's the same thing. But it's work that does have to be undertaken with great care. And we knew that this story that Lori's about to share with us was one that had to be told.
It also left us knowing exactly where everybody stood and just who was welcome, so that we can be the people who welcome Erla, who had just lost all of her family because she chose to live her authentic self. And she existed as Earl for 65 years, was faithful, a faithful husband, a faithful father, a faithful grandfather. But now it was Erla's time. And when Erla entered into her therapy and her counseling, the family bailed because it was too hard. It was just so hard. But Erla was not to be on this earth for very long. So she was only with us for a few weeks. Actually, Bishop Susan was visiting and came to church and got to meet Erla. The first day she came in, she sat down to worship and cried through the whole service. And as she was leaving, I said, "You were moved. What? How?" And you could see Erla still had some beard growth. And she just stood there crying because in all of her life, she was never told that she was it. That's what broke her. Because for all of her life, she believed that God hated her. So she came to whip us into shape because she became passionate about our community gardens. So while I was on holidays, Bishop Susan came to visit, and Erla decided to get up and chastise the congregation for not showing up to help pull weeds. And then she died very unexpectedly. She developed juvenile diabetes as a young child, and that is what. So when I reached out, because she was estranged from her family, I didn't know anybody, and I called the funeral home and said, if anybody calls for her, please give them my name and number. And his sister called. And while they were all grieving and feeling guilty about abandoning Erla, we, the faith community of St. David, were able to step in and say, you know what? It's all good. We had her. We had her for you. She was loved. She was held. She was brought out for the ladies' lunch. She worked in the gardens. She helped in the kitchen. She had an amazing 6 weeks with us. And she died knowing that she was a beloved child of God. Right? So we need to be those kinds of places.
Thanks to Lori for that powerful story, and thanks be to God for Erla. May her memory be a blessing. We move on to another important area that goes often hand in hand with reconciling in Christ training, but can be accessed outside of the RIC program in other ways, which is SOGI training. SOGI is an acronym meaning sexual orientation, gender identity. Its training helps facilitate a conversation with the goal of building understanding and awareness. It is also a standardized training platform that is used not only across the church, but within organizations and communities globally now. It has been leveraged in educational institutions, healthcare settings, and corporate settings, as well as religious institutions. And so SOGI training can be accessed through Reconciling Works, which you'll hear about more later, which is the RIC educational resource providers. And we have a video from Pastor Ralph Carl where he talks about the importance of all of us continuing in this education, even if we've done it once. It's kind of like CPR training or first aid training. If you've done it once, you have some ability to know maybe how to help someone in a time of need. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with terminologies and actions and ways to intercede with others. And so SOGI training is a part of that we can do as a church. And Ralph Carl will talk a little bit about, just very shortly, the pain he continues to feel as someone who often is in spaces perhaps without that training and the toll that takes.
Still places where people are hurting. There are still places where people have scars and wounds. And obviously, I mean, it's interesting how emotional this is for me. Like, I'm on the edge of tears as I talk with you this morning.
When we talked about ethical non-monogamy yesterday, we also talked about consent a little bit. We used that word. And just in case anyone isn't super aware of what consent is, it is an unambiguous, affirmative, and conscious decision by each person to engage in mutually agreed upon activity. Consent means respecting one another's bodily autonomy and our unique boundaries. Consent can be given, changed, or withdrawn at any point, regardless of the nature of the relationship. At church, we can seek consent before sharing the peace physically or giving someone a hug. The easiest way to get consent is to just ask. Say something like, "Hey, is it all right if I hug you?" We do have some videos that are going to play next as well.
We also don't connect with our bodies very well. I would say that most of our theology is disembodied, and it's something that is holding us back, and especially as it relates to sexuality, mental health, suicide, all of those really vulnerable areas of our lives. If we have a fear of talking about that, if we have no safe space to affirm our sexual selves, and this goes as well, right, for the straight young people and older people, if this is just not talked about, then we're closing off a whole area of ourselves.
Young people who say to me, why can't we have conversations about how to safely sexually experiment? Why can't we have real conversations in the church about why the church continues to teach that bodies are sinful?
Ethical non-monogamy. I know we covered this a little bit in answering some of the questions yesterday, but it's also good to review. Ethical non-monogamy is the practice of taking part in consensual, loving relationships that are not completely exclusive between two people. Ethically non-monogamous relationships rely on honest and open communication between parties about matters from one's emotional well-being, physical needs, to safe sex practices. Ethical non-monogamy may involve a relationship to more than one person simultaneously. And polyamory is just one form of ethical non-monogamy. We have 2 more videos to show, but just before we get to them, I just want to point out that since we had our conversation yesterday, I have had so many rich conversations about polyamory and ethical non-monogamy and consent and relationships. And this is what we as the task force, this is what one of our recommendations is. We want to continue these conversations beyond this assembly into our synods and into our congregations. So thank you for showing me that that's exactly what we can do. Pastor Ralph Carl's up again.
Probably a good expression of, where thinking was in 2010, but is probably not up to date. And I think, as we all know, language, certainly on campus and among academics and among young queers has, moved light years since 2009, 2010 when the statement was drafted. So obviously it probably should be updated and, revisited. I will say, I think something that was probably not on the mind of the framers of the statement was things like, polyamory and ethical non-monogamy, which in my experience as a campus minister at Emmanuel College and Knox College over the last 20 years or 18 years, is such an important real life issue in the lives of, seminarians and all students actually. So I think, we need to think proactively about that.
For me, inclusivity is not my issue, really. It's my problem, and I think where we need to move to in many ways is attitudes towards sexuality. Full stop. The church does not deal well with folks with bodies.
We laugh, but it also hits as truth. Hits as truth. I think we've all had experiences of not being quite known or seen as we feel. And sometimes that happens in churches. So how do we continue to learn more? And this has always been our hope as a task force. And the framing for our recommendations today and showing and walking through some of these things is our hope that you might see the next step for yourselves, your congregation, for your synod, for our church. We know that our church is vast in its diversity and its theology and its place. We're rooted in grace and love. And so please hear in grace and love our call to either begin a journey. Maybe that's simply talking about relationships in your congregation and consent. Maybe that's inviting seniors and youth together to have conversations about what life was like when they were teens and what life is like now. What's the importance of having consensual relationships in our church communities? That might be your starting point. Perhaps it's pronouns. Perhaps you've done initial work and it's time for those next steps in involving reconciling works, RIC, or even talking to other congregations to say, what has your journey been like? Maybe you're ready for further steps. Maybe you're further along on your journey and you know that you have ethically non-monogamous people in your congregation. Maybe there's polyamorous people you wish to affirm in your life. And so you want to learn more from Pride Centers, from our task force, looking for resources and begin conversations in your community. So below we have a list of several of those opportunities which you can take up, no matter how a report is brought forward. So you can watch for opportunities alongside Carmen Ramirez, Assistant to the Bishop for Diversity, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion within your synod. There's going to be wonderful upcoming opportunities to engage in education. Thank you, Carmen. ReconcilingWorks.org is a great resource for individuals, ministries, congregations, and synods wishing to learn and grow in inclusion and anti-racism within Lutheranism from the Lutheran perspective. And they have about 4 different online courses you can sign on for, and you'll be with ELCA Lutherans, ELCIC Lutherans, within a time zone that makes sense to you. And they are a gift. I believe they're only about $75 a session. And I think you can use continuing ed money towards that for rostered leaders. We also ask, be embedded in your communities, bloom where you're planted. Maybe this reconciling works feels like not the right connection. And so do reach out to your local Pride Center. Many Pride Centers have an educational arm or would be willing to begin a conversation with church communities. Community libraries are another amazing resource. Thanks be to God for librarians. They are a gift to our community. And also our municipalities often have resources in diversity, equity, and inclusion that you can be partners with or advocating for.
Now, lastly, we just wanted to share a bit of gratitude and thanks to those who supported us on our journey these last 3.5, 4-ish years. So thank you to Pastor Lionel Catola, Pastor Lori Polatsky, Deacon Scott Knar, Pastor Ralph Carl Wischke, and Pastor Don Hutchings, as well as everyone who shared their stories with us throughout our work. Thanks to them for sharing their hearts today in the stories that we shared, and about the importance of ongoing education within the church, especially when it comes to consent, our bodies, relationships, and human sexuality. Thank you.
I'm sorry to put the task force on the spot. How would you feel about there being some table discussion?
We've got time. Why not?
Yeah, we've got time. So let's set aside 15 minutes to talk about what you've heard, what you've read, what you're thinking. And remember, this evening, this is one of the things we'll be voting on. conversations and your thoughts, and then we'll come back together and we'll move on to the report of the Committee of Reference and Council. And come back together. And we'll call on the Committee for Reference and Council. I call you different things, for, of, on, depends on your Reference and Council.
Hi, Bishop.
Hi, David.
I just so enjoy to bring Emily along. So,
Here I am.
yes, so she will guide us through now the next motion. And may we have it on the screen, the next one? Yes, to the end.
Thank you, Bishop. Perfect. So this is our fifth motion, and it reads that the motion is that the ELCIC affirm that transgender, genderqueer, and gender nonconforming people are made in the image of God, in an infinite variety of gender identities and expressions, and we affirm that transgender rights are human rights. We encourage the Church in its national and local forms to continue explicitly condemning attacks against our trans and gender diverse siblings. Is that it?
Thank you very much.
We recommend adoption, and it's moved and seconded by Reference and Council.
Thank you. Excellent. Speaking to the motion.
So, Iris Schweiger, she, her pronouns, lay from Eastern Synod. You have been wondering why we are not speaking a lot and going to the microphones, and I believe it has to do with the amazing setup of the sessions and how you are guiding us from an initial report that we have read into more information during an information session, leading us into even more information. So it's the conversations continue after each of those sessions. So by the time we get here to vote, there are not many questions left. So I highly appreciate the way that this convention has been set up, and I'm grateful that you have done that for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate Zeiser, rostered delegate from Alberta, Synod of Alberta and the Territories. I brought forth this motion, and at this time I want to thank you, Bishop Susan, for signing the Momentum petition, which is to tell the Government of Canada to act for queer safety. And I want to acknowledge that that has been done. And that was a powerful expression of our support. However, I feel that it is important for this convention also to add our voices in support of our queer and transgender siblings.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak? Nope. Microphone in favor. Hi, Tim.
My name is Tim Ray from Alberta Synod. This is a very weighty motion and one that I appreciate because it fits with something I would have brought up for the next round of motions. The clarity of it is key. I heard in the video presentations a longing by those pastors to be named with the evangelical testimony, you are children of God. And this motion brings that. And hopefully it would be tied to the recommendations that the committee or task force is bringing to us. However, personally, the term transgendered, just that term, equates with human rights. I do not feel equipped to make that statement. All of this language is codified and specialized, and maybe it's hitting me in the face and I'm just not quite getting it, but this is a big statement, and I could use some more direction around what that actually means and what the implications are. So,
okay. So
that's my minute.
Pastor Tim, I'm not sure whether you're speaking in favor or opposed, or whether you're just asking questions.
I am asking a question in favor of the clarity of the motion regarding children of God.
Yeah.
As far as what human rights are and the purview of the church and how that relates to the term transgender. I don't know what that means, and there may be others in our church or the room who could be in a similar place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Forgive my ignorance.
No, it's okay. So I think you know what human rights are?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I think what the statement is trying to say is that transgender people have the same rights as every other human.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense to me. My inkling wondering was, does it mean that's no, I'll take that to be what it is. Thank you.
Okay. Microphone in favor.
Hi, I'm Christina Kunert, lay delegate for the Eastern Synod. My pronouns are she and her. In case additional clarity would be helpful, I think generally we say that cisgendered people are people whose identities align with what they were assigned at birth. So if you were born a girl and your doctor was like, you're a girl, and you grew up and you're like, yep, I'm a girl, that's cisgender. And transgender could be any number of things where the thing that the doctor said when you were born does not feel right to you. So in a number of ways that could work out. That's what I'd like to say.
Are you ready to vote? Oh, hold on. There's somebody coming to the microphone, and then we'll see the motion.
My name is Pastor Erin Thomas. My pronouns are she, her, rostered leader. Just by way of further clarification, I think the motion is also speaking to the reality that transgender people and gender diverse people face a disproportionate amount of shame and violence in our society. And this is meant to stand against that shame and that violence, and a commitment towards expressing the truth that all of us are beloved children of God.
Thank you. Let's have the motion back up on the screen. And if, Kyle, you can fire up the voting app. It's ready. What did I do with my phone? Go ahead. Don't wait for me.
There are 3 parts. I read the beginning, you read the middle, I read the end. Okay.
I put it back. Oh, it's in my purse. Okay. Sorry. I'm tired, so I'm just letting everything flow out. My apologies. Okay, let me just check in. Has everyone voted? Any voting issues? Okay, thank you. Kyle, when you're, or tech people, when you're ready. And the motion has carried. Thank you. David, I need to apologize to you because I said you were a good boy, and you're not a boy. You're a fully grown man and a colleague. We went to seminary together, and I respect you, so my apologies.
I think we are still in the memory of 30 years or 40 or 60 years ago, right? We are good.
Back when God was a girl, that's right. But my apologies. I need to watch my language as well, so thank you. Next motion.
That the National Convention ask NCC to include an opportunity to speak about and listen to the changes in churches related to the diminishing numbers in congregations and churches closing, and that a prayer of gratitude be offered for the ministry of churches who have closed in recent years in the next National Convention in 2025.
This motion also asks the NCC to encourage synodical councils to include this conversation at their next synodical convention, which is next year in 2024.
And more, the motion also asks the convention to take a moment of silence to appreciate these recently closed congregations. The Conference and Council recommends adoption, so moved and second.
Thank you. The motion is before you. Speaking. Are you ready to vote? Looks like it. Let's go. Anyone having problems with voting? Over here? Okay. Me too. Okay, voting is closed. Thank you very much. The motion is passed. We're going to take a moment of silence now, and then I'm going to pray. And in that prayer, there'll be time to, if you wish, to name congregations and ministries that have recently closed. Let us pray. Loving God, you create us as your beloved children, and you call us into beloved communities in your church. We recognize that even congregations and ministries have seasons, new beginnings, new shoots, growth, bearing fruit, regrowth. But there are times when plants get old and roots wither, and the time has come for that plant to end. Same too with congregations, for a variety of reasons. They grow smaller. They find it difficult to go on. Sometimes they get older. And for whatever reason, they decide that they cannot continue. We give you thanks for their faithful ministry. We give you thanks for the ways that they have worked to upbuild the reign of God in our world. We pray for them and hope that they know that they are not failures. We thank them for the courage in making a painful decision. And we pray that members will find other communities to participate in and receive nurture as beloved children of God. And now we remember before you these congregations and ministries.
Unity Medicine Hat.
We give you thanks for their faithful ministry. We entrust them into your eternal memory and care. And we ask for you to give us courage and strength as we continue ministry without them in this expression. All these things we pray in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
What is it? Yeah, let's do this. One more.
Sure. This is the seventh motion, and the motion reads that we ask the NCC to create and provide resources to congregations in the area of mental health, cognitive differences, and disabilities, so congregation members can be equipped to minister to people in these areas. The Referencing Council recommends adoption, so it's moved and seconded.
Thank you. It's before you.
Barb Stoley, ATB Synod, and for the first time ever, she, her. There are many resources that are available and around mental health, cognitive disabilities. And many resources that are also faith-based. So rather than creating new, I think it would make sense to investigate and make available what is already available. Let's not reinvent the wheel where it doesn't need to be. We're asking NCC to already do many, many, many things.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, let's fire up the machines. Kyle? How are we doing for voting? Anyone not voted yet? Okay, thank you very much. So Kyle, I think we'll declare voting closed. And that has carried. Thank you. I said this in my report last year, and I mean, you guys were all delegates, but you may or may not have noticed it or heard it or paid attention, but I'm someone who struggles with mental health. I've been in depression for a number of years now, and I thank God for meds and doctors' care and the support of family and friends, the prayers that you offer up for me. And I want you to know I'm fine because of those things that I'm doing. But mental health is a big problem, and it's something that we need to talk more openly about in the church as well. So I'm only telling you this, not so you worry about me, because I'm really good now. I'm really good. Pandemic, not so much. Now, really good. So I guess that's it. Don't worry about me. I'm only telling you this because I think we need to talk about it more. And if I can't be open about it, how can I expect anyone else to be open about it? Okay? Okay, let us review the bidding. And this is what's left. We're going to break now. I've got a couple of announcements. Yeah, you can go to the microphone. Let me finish this spiel then, and then I'll let you speak. Is that okay? And what we have left afterwards is we will be voting on the action of the Task Force on Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia, the report and recommendations. We're dealing with a motion on peace and justice in Israel and Palestine. And there are 2 more motions from Referencing Council. Thank you, Referencing Council, by the way. Yeah, they're working hard. And then we're having a celebration as we honor the ELCIC Leadership Award recipient tonight. And that's been announced, and it's Pat Lovell, and she's here with us. And so that will be great. And then we are invited to join the Anglican, to be assembly That's the right word. To be assembly and worship together. And then there's a gospel jamboree. So it's a tradition within the Indigenous expression of the Anglican Church to have gospel jamboree. It's a lot of gospel music. People sing instruments. Some of the local community people who are going to be here are not able to because of an issue that happened in the community. So some of the worship people will be providing music as well. Bannock is being served, and I invite you to stay and participate in that for at least for a while to honor the invitation from the Indigenous Church. And the announcements I have is, again, the one about the bus. Yeah, you're supposed to do that for me. Yeah. So a reminder again, check out at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Yeah. The shuttles will depart at 11:30, and the second one will be around 1. So time yourself. If those don't work, if you need to be at the airport earlier, then an 11 o'clock shuttle will get you there. Or then by all means, take a taxi or an Uber and send us a bill. Okay? Dinner is being served very soon, and we will be coming back here at 6:30, remember? Okay? And please.
Geez, I've got allergies. Just about the motion for reference in council on materials being provided for people with mental health issues, disabilities. It's just something that's near and dear to me. I work in this field, a frontline worker, and I think having resources that reflect a Lutheran Christian perspective and our call to welcome people and affirm the intrinsic value of people is just very important. I've seen people frozen out of congregations because they think differently, and we're behind on this one. So I'm glad that the National Church is going to look into this and provide resources that I think will be helpful to congregations as they minister to people.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate table support. That's good. Okay, friends, we are recessed until 6:30. Enjoy your dinner. Get a break. We can do everything we have left. I'm not anxious about the time, so, okay? Here we go. Yeah.